Hello malt mates, hello whisky fans, welcome to the Bothy. I am Ralphie, I review whisky, and this is the Whisky Bothy. Old fashioned, rustic, looking a little bit frayed at the edges, yes, and so is the building behind me. So welcome to an extras 1128 extras for extra content, extra perspective, extra opinion and extra anecdotes. And we're going to focus on the anecdotes here because I've just reviewed a whisky in review number 1128 and it's called Tam Dhu. And I've been round whisky for a long time, but for most of that time Tam Dhu has barely registered on my radar, and bear in mind we have 150 single malt whisky distilleries plus in Scotland now, and that doesn't even include these delightful distilleries across England, Wales and Ireland. Let's put them in the mix because some of what they are creating is available to us, particularly if we're in the UK. And what happens is you start to appreciate whisky with one single bottle. And for me, I was in a bar, a quiet bar, early evening in a little riverside borough, really traditional place in Glasgow called Partick. And I moved there in the mid-1980s. First home I ever had, it was what's called a single end. A single end is literally a single-ended apartment of basically bathroom, kitchen, front room, back room, and the back room doubles as a bedroom, and that's it. Quite small, but being Victorian built, still enough room to swing a cat when you see the appallingly small size of modern homes, which are small because people will tolerate it. But there I was in this flat, and literally out my front room window, which is a bay window, I could see the pub down at the end of the road. So it was very good walking and easy staggering distance, because I admit it, back in my 20s, I was prone to having a full-scale bevy night in local bars because it was fun. And then I would get home, have a cup of tea, and then I'd pour myself some rum and tonic. Tonic and rum in a tumbler with a bit of ice. That was my thing. And then I'd listen to some rave music. Or if it was the 1980s, some New Romantics, Japan and The Cure and all the rest of it. Anyway, let's refocus here. I don't want to get too sentimental, even though I have huge opportunity to be sentimental. I hope young people today can enjoy the sentimentality that I enjoyed back in the 80s, including going into a local bar. With no television, no jukeboxes. It was just the locals went in there, the ladies for their gin and tonics and sweet sherries. Absolutely, had to be a sweet sherry, and vodka and tomato juice, the Bloody Mary, an absolute stock staple classic in the bar. And behind the bar was a small selection of blended whiskies with 2 single malt whiskies. Literally it was Glenfiddich and Glenmorangie, and that, malt mates, that was it. This was what's called a working man's pub. It sold beer, it sold gin and tonics. It was not about selling single malt whisky. However, bottles of single malt whisky would appear in the bar because some of the customers would bring in a bottle that they got free as a gift from one of the family who worked for distilleries. And they'd say to the barman, could you put that on the shelf and maybe give me some free drink in exchange for it? So it happened in these days. It's the way it worked. I was there, I saw it happen. And one of the bottles that I saw one evening behind the bar, it was a green bottle, a dumpy bottle. And in the front it said Westering Home. And it was from Islay. And it was from Bunnahabhain Distillery. And I'd never seen Bunnahabhain Distillery bottlings before. And they only basically had one. It was the 12-year-old, bottled at 40%, with a big glossy label on it, stuck on with what looked like horsehoof glue. And one evening I ordered a dram of it. And I nosed it and I tasted it and asked for a wine glass, because they had wine glasses. And I poured from the tumbler into the wine glass and left the ice in the tumbler. And I just roly-polied the glass and started sniffing. And then the comments started, "What are you up to? What are you doing? You're not in the Balmoral Hotel now. What do you think you're playing at? Just get it, knock it back and get it inside you." It's called banter. Glasgow, or Ouija banter. You can't beat it. Very important to know that if you have good friends in Glasgow, one of the great skills you need is the ability to insult them as hurtfully as possible while keeping it funny. Because part of the important, and this is quite unique actually, you can't do it in Edinburgh, I assure you of that. One of the unique features of Glasgow is that the calibre of a friendship is not proclaimed by the regularity of compliments. In fact, compliments after a couple do start to become suspicious. It's about the quality of the insults and the imaginative connectivity. So, for example, here I am in the bar, right, in the Smithy, the Smithy, and I've got this Bunnahabhain in the glass and I'm rolling it around and I'm just adding a wee drop of water because Dave the barman has just popped up a wee jug in the counter, wee ceramic one, free ornamental for a blended whisky. He's got his arms folded, bar towel over his arm, and he's going, "What the F do you think you're playing at here?" He says, "Stop that enough, stop that once, you're going to be giving this bar a good name." Boom, Glasgow banter, classic. And I said, "Oh, but I'm smelling this whisky." To which someone who'd been working in the whisky industry for their whole life, since they left school at 14, says, "Oh, for goodness sake, it all tastes the same after 12 glasses. Which is perfectly true. All whisky starts to taste the same after 12 glasses. Just ask any of the whisky aficionados that go to whisky festivals, and I assure you they will categorically deny that happens. But I tell you what, they're lying. They're lying. This is why you always leave the peated whisky to last at a whisky festival. And one way to control the amount you're drinking is to actually have a notebook and write down your tasting notes. It's not that you need the tasting notes, you need a reason to disrupt your regular sipping and consumption of whisky just to let your palate rest when you're at whisky festivals. So take note. So here I am in the Smithy with the Bunnahabhain going, "Oh, I'm really enjoying that. It's kind of got that kind of dried fruit, mixed dried fruit that you used with a little peel, lemon peel and grapefruit peel and orange peel that you use for making cakes." And one of the customers, one of the ladies that worked in the flower shop, she came up, she puts it on and said, "Oh, aye, right enough, I'm getting a wee bit of fruit cake." To which one of her pet friends responded, "What do you mean you're getting fruitcake? You are a fruitcake." Boom, boom, Glasgow banter. Anyway, so I finally finished it off, and the following day I went into a branch of Oddbins, which was a notable independent wine retailer at that point, which had acquired quite a bit of a reputation for itself as having decent wine in a society which didn't know what decent wine was, because most people were drinking pish. And many people are still drinking pish because there's very little regulation of wine. It's full of sulfites, it's sweetened, it's artificially coloured, it's flavoured, and this is because they are getting thinner and thinner yields of over-cultivated vineyards. But you don't hear so much about that. But if you're going to find about that, speak to a wine connoisseur when they are a little bit too drunk for their own good. There we go. Just an opinion. Only an opinion. So I'm looking at this shop here, and unlike the bar, it's got about 60 different single malt whiskies. And I'm just looking up and down the line, and at that point I was looking at Balvenie. I was looking at Springbank had just been resurrected and was just beginning to recover its lost reputation. And at that point, I mean, Springbank was actually shut down for a period in the 1990s because people were not buying Springbank. People were not buying the flavour. People were not interested in flavour. It had gone out of fashion, just as is happening now. But back then it was, it's just becoming back into... It was the golden years, by the way, malt mates. In the 1990s, it was a very, very special moment in time for Scotch whisky, where you could still get all the old dead distillery bottlings from independent bottlers like Cadenheads. And that included, occasionally you'd see pop up Tam Dhu. And you think, nah, leave that. I've never heard of that one. It's like Glenglassaugh. It's like Glenlochy. I've never heard of it. I don't want to take a chance because, after all, they've got that cask strength Laphroaig, and you can't go wrong with that to finish off a heavy session. Or if you've been up at the Students' Union for in the mosh pit for a goth concert, that was the lifestyle then. And I left Tam Dhu on the shelf often. It wasn't there very often, but when I did see it, I left it at the corner of my mind because there were so many other options. Primarily, there's the Flora and Fauna range. There's the rare malt selection bottlings from Diageo, when Diageo was actually its own independent bottler in-house. And goodness knows why they gave that one up. But they bottled some stunning bottles. The St Magdalen, the Cianich, the Broras. They were just absolutely so many of them actually. And Glengrant's. Oh my! Don't get me started on Glengrant's from Gordon and MacPhail and from Berry Brothers and Rudd. Oh, phenomenal! That was the golden age, malt mates, because you got old stuff which nobody was interested in buying for very good prices compared to what we're paying now. And this doesn't become much of a conversation, malt mates, in the modern whisky scene, why older whiskies, when there's never been higher stocks of older whiskies than there is now. Simple as. Why the prices are so high. But good luck to the whisky distilleries, because when there's such fierce price points on entry-level non-age statement and basic age statement single malts, they've got to get the real profits in from somewhere. So good luck to them. I'm not going to criticise them on that. It's just the lie of the land. But latterly, yeah, I saw a few official bottlings of Tam Dhu. They were pretty lacklustre because of who owned them at that point. They were making no effort at all. But you could see that the potential was there, the character was there, the singularity of the single malt was definitely there. So here we are, all these years later, and when I open a bottle like this, and I've not had much from it, I mean, I'm enjoying it, but not that much, because it's a weak delivery. It's as simple as that. To an experienced whisky drinker who's focusing on independent bottlings and 46% bottlings, it's just an automatic red flag these days. 43% or 40%. It tells you it's heavily chill filtered. It tells you that it's dialed in, it's engineered down, it's simply reduced in its vitality. It's just a fact of it. I don't care what the experts tell you. I don't care what was disclosed in the Peekaboo, brand ambassadors, special tasting invitation only exclusive event. You know, big fat yawn. Really. It's... You can never relax, you can never enjoy yourself at these events, no matter how much you're encouraged and told to do so. So here we are. I'd like to come back to Tamdhu before too long, because it's that stylist signature that I'm really applauding and enjoying at this moment in time, when I'm too bloody fussy for my own good, because I'm part of that generation which has been outrageously spoiled rotten. Admit it, you're in the same situation. Spoiled rotten as to the sheer variety and the quality of whiskies which are available for us to buy, which are relatively affordable, so long as we're careful not to make bad mistakes and just buy rubbish, because that option can and always will exist. So here's to Tamdhu's future. I hope they don't overhype the brand. I hope they don't, quote unquote, rip the arse out of it. And I hope that they continue to treat their customers with respect, because it's the sort of customers who understand whisky, who are your dependable, predictable, reliable and appreciative customers in the future, who are far less likely to walk away from the brand. And there you have it, malt mates. I probably missed a few things out, but it's so sad. Never mind, doesn't matter. I'll be back soon with more content. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this and you want live streams and extra videos, consider my Patreon channel, because it's bouncing along with its own Discord channel as well, and you will be made most welcome if you're interested in a small monthly subscription for which you get reliable, consistent rewards. Bye bye.